I swear to God, it looked like a rainbow. Take 17. Hello, and welcome back to Wanderous. This is a show that is designed to inspire you and to change your life. I mean that in the fullest possible way. This is a show about changing your relationship to reality disguised as a travel show. Yes, I blew it. I totally shared the secret too soon. Oh, well. This is a show tangentially about leaving the matrix. It is a show about subjectivity, subjective reality, and going outside your comfort zone. Today, I'm going to talk about visiting Stonehenge. Yeah, the one in England, and how it inspired me, but also how you too can flow with the travel magic, do something like I did. But before I dive into that, I want to talk about the events leading up to it. Now, in past episodes, I've talked about couch surfing, and it's kind of hippie type of thing, but you can stay at people's places for free. You can crash on their couch. I was staying in a place in London called Acton. Acton is on the west side of London. I was staying in a building complex, which, without revealing too much, was about to be demolished. So my host was staying there. He got a pretty good deal, let's just say. And one of the best things about staying in this place was there was roof access in this lovely, like a roof patio. Now he had a new acquaintance that he was subletting a room to. Long story short, I won't go into the drama here. I'll probably go into it in a members only Patreon post because I don't want that to necessarily be public. And it's also kind of a spicy story that I'm going to leave for my Patreon supporters. If you want to support me and the work that I do on this show and the work that I do around storytelling, I write tropical sci-fi, also designed to inspire you to get out of the matrix, we'll say, and to think about life in just a little bit weird, different angle. You can go to patreon.com/hello, CRUSOE. That's Hello Crusoe, CRUSOE. Thank you to everyone who supports this show. You have no idea how often I flub lines and have to repeat myself, but I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. The brain to mouth connection is not working great today, but the other parts of the brain are working pretty well, so we're just going to roll with it. One of the best things about this time was the sense of community that I was already cultivating in London. I was very surprised how well things were flowing. I can only attribute that to trusting my intuition, trusting in divine timing. I trusted my new host so much that I left a fair amount of things at his place before I went over to Swindon. Now, I believe I mentioned Swindon in a previous episode. Swindon is closer to Stonehenge than London, obviously. And I stayed with an Indian guy and his wife who were very generous and very lovely. And I also met them through couch surfing. And we had this big plan. And the timing was perfect because he didn't have a car, but his friend was visiting. Another instance of divine timing. And we agreed to split the gas cost to drive to Stonehenge. This was a major boon because while you can take a bus down to Stonehenge and deal with it, you have to work around the schedules. And this would allow us to potentially see more of the area. I'll get to that in a moment. I'll also, in a bonus episode, talk about how my host in Acton, before I left, his new roommate, tried to seduce me, which was very flattering. But this is called a teaser. I'm teasing you right now. That is just going to be a little bonus type thing. It's a bit tangential to the main story, a side adventure, and again, like I said, a little spicy. Stonehenge was not spicy. Stonehenge was a different chakra. Stonehenge was kind of, how would I say, It was very in the throat. Even before we got there, as we walked across this just massive flat field, I didn't realize how featureless. I have this photo walking across. The place is so featureless that the massive parking lot seems small in relation to the featurelessness of this field. There is a small ditch around Stonehenge. And the first thing that occurred to me approaching Stonehenge, and I told you I'm going to be very honest with you, if I wasn't impressed with something, if I was disappointed, and many things I find unimpressive. I've been very lucky to go to incredible places, and I have kind of a high bar at this point. That's why one of the lessons I've learned in general is don't go in with expectations. Just go in with very low expectations of people, places, things, services, water quality. Just don't go in with too many expectations with anything. It's one of the ways in which travel is a spiritual practice. It teaches us non-attachment. And one of the first things that occurred to me about Stonehenge, and this is kind of my only complaint, is it does not look like a circle. Stonehenge, if you do the scholarship, if you do the research, Stonehenge was probably finished, air quotes, finished around 2200 BC. Maybe a few hundred, maybe a little bit before that, maybe 2400. So it's been there for over 4,000 years. So it's been through a lot. A lot. Things have been removed. Things have been screwed with. For all we know, for all we know, at one point, these were plated and they were looted. That's an alternative history idea. I don't know. It's possible because it's that old. It's that old. One of the things that I'm going to do, one of the things I'm going to share with you that I think is pretty cool, is I'm going to play some audio bits from the live photos from my visit. Things like this. You can hear the drums in the background a bit. Yeah, there were a lot of people there. I actually recorded an interview at Stonehenge. Those of you who are familiar with another show that I will do, I don't know, time is funny, know that one of the episodes of that show called Ascendant, I brought a big old microphone and wanted to do an interview in Stonehenge, and was very lucky to come across a druid dressed in skins, and it was really an amazing outfit, very, very naturalistic, and he really did me a solid, as we would say where I'm from. He really did me a solid, and he was a fantastic guest on Ascendant. It was about maybe a 25 minute interview that I will probably link to in the show notes of this episode, which will be at my Patreon, of course. And he told this wild story of a goddess coming to him when he was on the brink of death. I don't want to spoil it. It's truly a trippy show, and the trippiness that was only foreshadowing things that would come in my future travels. As I wandered around the stones in the darkening twilight, I had an inspiration to put my hand on one of them, and I was stunned. I was really stunned by this feeling of heat. The stones felt alive. Of course, there's a scientific explanation for this. They had been, warmed by the sun all day. They'd been storing solar energy all day. But it felt like more than that. It felt like they had a life of their own. They felt like there was something stirring within them. It was a really special experience. And there were also a few stones toward the center. There were a few there's even one that was like lying down. You could tell that a lot had happened here over the past 4,000 years. Many ceremonies and a lot of gatherings, which was one of the reasons I was there. This was the night before midsummer or the summer solstice. So, as is a tradition in England, people like to stay up all night on the shortest night of the year. They'll stay up all night either in Stonehenge or in other stone circles around. We'll get to that. There were so many people drumming. There were so many drum circles, and people were just, it was such a safe, warm, beautiful environment. I sort of lost track of time. I got some photos of myself in front of some of the stones. I felt this sense of like, finally, I've got to something real, you know? This was definitely the oldest, yeah, I would say the oldest monument I'd ever been to. Now, growing up in the United States of America, you know, it's not that, pretty much everything in Europe is going to be older than most of the things you'll come across in North America for reasons. But there was a sense of deep peace as well. And I found out something. I was talking to some other people. I met some interesting characters. Some of the people really dressed up, just ornately and very tribally. You know, this is a sacred site for the Druids and many pagan and naturalist religions and belief systems. The Stonehenge, if you're not familiar, is basically a big calendar. The sunset on the solstice lines up with the center of some of these stones. And I learned that on the other solstice, the December solstice, which would be the winter solstice there is another gathering. And as far as I know, most of the time there are fences around this. There are tapes, and you're not supposed to touch the stones normally. They only open it up. The National Trust, which manages these monuments, they only really open it up on sacred special days where people can do their spiritual practices. So that's another good reason. If you do go to Stonehenge, I recommend you go on a solstice, either in the summer or in the winter, first day of summer or the first day of winter. And I was talking to someone, I believe it was a Druid, who said the one in winter, as you can imagine, is very, very, very different. And not just because it's freezing, but because the meaning of that day is very different. It is sort of the yin to the summer's yang, to the summer's yang, however you pronounce it. I don't know. Tell me in the comments. And that day, in the winter, they don't play music. It's reserved for, or if they do, it's quiet. But I believe he said they don't really play music. It's reserved for meditation and prayer and silent reflection within the circle of the stones. So, as of this recording, I have not been to England in the winter, and saying that now, it doesn't sound that attractive. But if I do find myself there, that would be one of the things I would consider. That'd be one of my higher priorities. My host was up for going to Avebury after Stonehenge. This was brilliant. So if you're not familiar with Avebury, Avebury, Avebury is actually the widest stone circle monument in England. I believe even in Europe, it's like a mile wide. It's absurd. I'm not Wikipedia. I don't have the dimensions memorized, but it's bigger than you would think, and it's also Neolithic. It's much older than most of the things around, and they've built a bit of a village around it. The aerial photos are pretty cool, actually. It's very, it's very English, very pretty. The stones are about similar size, maybe a little bit bigger. And we had the idea to go there next. It wasn't that far. I want to say it was like 15-minute, 20-minute drive, as I can recall. But when we got there, I'm just going to check my timestamps on these photos. Yeah. So when we got there, my couch surfing host and his friend, his wife didn't come. She had work in the morning. She was like, well, she probably thought, let's let the boys do their goofy adventure through all the old stones. We got there and we had a terrible time finding parking in the night, because by then it was perhaps 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe getting into 10 p.m. And we're looking along the roads, because guess what? Avebury is, among locals, it's a pretty popular place to celebrate the summer solstice. We finally find this place to pull off, and my host says, I'm going to take a nap. I'm pretty tired. But you can go on ahead without us, and we'll catch up with you. Now, I already had my Smarty SIM card there, not a sponsor, but it should be. Because I had that Smarty SIM card for 4 or 5 months, when I was in Europe. Good service. And I was able to text and stay in touch and had data. I had data, luckily. So I start walking down this very dark road with no sidewalk, trying to avoid getting killed. Luckily, there wasn't much traffic, and I start to hear some new drumming sounds. And I quickly get swept up into this sort of bonfire situation, and I meet circus performers and people with, being an American, technically, everyone's accent is just very charming to me, just saying. You've got you've got Midlands accents and Londoner accents, but then you've got some Scottish accent over here, and you've got some Irish accent over here, and I was like, oh, this is just so charming. And I was having a good time. And not just because someone gave me, what did someone give me? Someone gave me a bit of gin or something like that. And if you listen to this show, you get to learn stuff about me. I'm a lightweight when it comes to alcohol. I rarely drink because of that. And having one drink, literally one drink, made the fire spinners around me, and there was quite a bit of poi, we would call it in Hawaii, these big staffs with fire on either side. And some of them were elaborate. They'd have little things. It was just mesmerizing watching these people twirl fire around. But there is an issue with being in Avebury at night, even in June, which is that it will be pretty close to freezing. And I had not quite anticipated that. I was wearing a jacket. I was wearing an extra layer. I was wearing a couple layers, actually. I don't believe I had a hat, which is a terrible oversight. In fact, at the time, I believe I only had a ball cap, and I didn't bring that because that wasn't going to help me. That thing's extremely thin. So I was just hanging out by the fire. I was like, it's going to work out. The whole theme of this expansive process, because I do see travel as a very powerful, not just personal growth experience, but also something that can lead toward major spiritual and overall philosophical breakthroughs. By exposing yourself and getting outside your comfort zone, you can start to step outside of old patterns, old identity, and start to see yourself more clearly. But maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was my strange sleep schedule because I wasn't tired. The night kind of dragged on for a while because I was very excited. I thought we would probably see the sunrise over this hill. I didn't know where anything was. I kind of go around and I get up on this. There's this sort of embankment, this sort of earthen wall. And they said, oh, maybe it'll rise over here. And I thought maybe I'll see it at 4 in the morning. I don't have to wait that much. And I got pretty cold. But I was talking to people, and then I turn around and hey, it's my couch surfing host. He shows up, and finally, after what felt like a very long time, and I was awake the entire time. My sleep schedule was crazy. My body didn't know what time it was. Finally, I see some lightning on the horizon. This is it. It's coming. It's coming. The first sunrise. The first sunrise of the summer. It's going to be beautiful. I knew it'd be beautiful. The moon is also quite pretty. It's about half full. But darn it, if that sunrise didn't take a long time, I really learned some lessons about patience and maybe even non-attachment that very early morning. So I hang out and I talk to people, and people, there's like, hooliganing around and being funny and making sounds. Finally, after what felt like forever, we see this bright tip. And I'm not kidding. Like, it looked psychedelic. It looked rainbowish. Maybe it's because dream brain chemicals were in my, there were dream chemicals happening in my brain. But I swear to God, it looked like a rainbow. Here's a little audio clip from that moment.
I know, it's right there.
There was this sort of awe. So I take some pictures, and we're standing, and it is just this beautiful, clear day when we're being bathed finally by this literally golden, it's like a cover of some musical album or something. And for the first time, as I turn around, I can finally see the stones, because I barely even found the stones before. I'd never even seen any of this circle because it had been so wide and the stones were spaced so far apart that I don't even think I'd touched one. So I turn around and I finally see the reality of where the stones are, and oh look, there's trees and there's a ditch, and there's it's very well maintained, and the stones are just there. And I even have a nice photo of the half moon. That's it. And it was after so much waiting and still being quite cold, quite cold. Got some photos in front of some of the stones. Me and my host got some photos, and just being very silly and spreading our arms. And it is a World Heritage Site. I took a picture of a it's called the Avebury Henge, and it is the largest stones. Oh, okay, so there we go. It was probably built in 2500 BC. If you look at photos of Avebury from the air, it's quite interesting. It's the whole layout is very sacred. You can tell there's a lot of energy and forethought put into it. So at last, it became June 21st. And I felt like now my adventure had really firmly, concretely had begun. I really imposed upon my unconscious mind, you're in Britain, and this place is way older than your country, and it was good for me. I didn't sleep at all that night. We got back to Swindon, and I think that was the 21st was the first night I actually slept in Swindon. And again, I was very lucky. I had a bed, kind of thin mattress, but still it's perfectly good. I have a photo from the view. I was looking for this photo earlier. The view from that window. And I saw the next day hot air balloons. It was I thought it was a wonderful sign, because I had never really seen hot air balloons before. I've only seen them in movies. Yeah, that's a little clip from that. In fact, the next day, as I like to do for my hosts, I made them some food. I cooked sort of like a vegetable stir fry with beans and capsicum, or Americans would say like bell peppers, and corn, and got some tortilla, and basically made them my host and his wife, I made them like a vegan quesadilla, which sounds weird, but it turned out really good. And they really enjoyed it. They said they really enjoyed it anyway. Then there was a bit of drama about the host again. Well, not that host, the host from Acton, actually. I found out that the place I stayed in Acton, he was asking the woman, who I believe I called Ranjani in a past episode, he was asking her to leave. And she didn't want to leave. And it was a bit of a complicated situation that I won't get into. And I can't even remember all the details, to be honest. But I want to be very transparent, honest about my adventure. This is it. Because I probably won't write a book about this one. And I know a lot of you prefer audiobooks anyway, so I'm cutting out a step and I'm making a podcast. If you've enjoyed this show, please consider supporting the show. Not only will you get private, maybe more spicy episodes of this show, you will also get over 20 hours. I think we got like 24, 25 hours of other audiobooks on the Patreon. You get the entire 3-volume compendium of 10,000 Hours in Paradise, which is a story I wrote, a true adventure story, all true, so true I had to give everyone pseudonyms about love and lava and work trade and intense personalities, and what happened to me when I moved to Big Island and the consciousness shift that really led me to some of these travels that I'm talking about now. So please be sure to at least follow me for free on Patreon so that you'll see what's coming up next, which is an amazing tour and introduction to Oxford, and then the events that led me to going up to Glasgow, Scotland, and some of the beautiful and chilly, yes, I said chilly, adventures happen over there. See you next time.